Hello, this is Jason McManus with BIS. In today's presentation, we're going to show you how you can use the data integration platform Grouper to migrate content from a on-premise SharePoint document library over to the enterprise content management application box. So what you see on the screen right now is a SharePoint 2013 document library, similar to what we see a lot in the marketplace with some of the old on-premise content management applications. It was planned poorly with very weak organization. In this case, you're just seeing a bunch of random files that are out there with no real organization from a file naming structure, folder structure, no taxonomy or anything of that nature. So if we were to look at some of these files, you're going to see that we've got different document types. We've got a master services agreement in this case. We've also got an invoice that's in this file room. You'll also see that we've got a loan packet. And then even within the loan packet, as I scroll through and look at the content, we have some sensitive data elements that are exposed. So we'd like to fix all these problems, during the migration. So not only move it from this on-prem solution over to Box, but also modernize it. We want to go through and apply organization levels so that we organize it by content type. We want to index it properly, so collecting key data elements out of it to use for index fields or naming structures in the system, and then also removing any sensitive data elements. So what we end up with after we have Grouper process the files is something that looks a little more like this. So here's Box. So there's those same exact files that have been processed and run through Grouper, and now we've got them broken down by category. So here I've got a loan packet folder. If I open up that loan packet folder, I can see that we found 2 loan packets out of those 16, 17, however many files that existed within SharePoint. So if I were to open up one of these files and actually view it, you'll notice that if I go down to page 3, which it opens up on here, I can see that the social was found by Grouper and the date of birth and was auto-redacted. So as we run through our process, and I'll show you the actual steps that we go through in Grouper in a second, we're looking for patterns and flows and certain things. And if those are found, we can apply different actions to them. One of those actions is a redaction step. So in this case, we were looking for social security patterns and date patterns, and when we find date patterns with certain data elements near or around them, we identify it as a birth date or date of birth. We auto-redact those. When we output the file, we have the ability to output multiple versions. So we also could have outputted a non-redacted version of this file into a more secure location where fewer people would have access to it. So we have that option in our configuration as well. If we were to go back to our list of document types, we also could pull up one of those invoices. So there's our invoice. Instead of just a random name on our invoice, we've renamed it based on the company that the invoice came from. So we went and found that data element, in this particular case on the invoice. Now, we'll have another presentation that we do in another video where we'll talk about all the data elements we can extract from a document like this. But for the purpose of this presentation today, all we really wanted to do was apply some organization levels, some basic indexing to these files, and scan them for at-risk data elements. So all we did here was extract the Enid parts name, use that as our file name, and classify this as an invoice. We'll look at a few more file types. So we've also got a non-disclosure agreement here. So I can open up and see that we found 3 of those for these 3 companies. If I wanted to view the Initech agreement, I can open it up. And you'll notice that we do, in fact, have a non-disclosure agreement, and it is, in fact, for Initech. Now, another thing we can do that we'll show in another presentation is we also have the ability to do contracts analysis. So on files like this, if we wanted Grouper to analyze the file and identify if specific clauses existed or not, things like jurisdiction clauses, maybe confidentiality clauses, maybe non-solicitation clauses, Grouper can read these sections and auto-identify if those clauses are present or not, and if it does find a clause, it can mine it for a data element like for jurisdiction. It could actually look and see what the jurisdiction was set for. But again, for today's presentation, we wanted to keep this very simple. We just wanted to find out what kind of document it was, who in fact the company was that this contract was for, Initech in this particular case, scan it for sensitive data, and get it migrated out of this on-premise technology into Box. So how did all this happen? Well, let's open up the Grouper Design Studio and let's look at our batch and the actual process that it went through. So in this particular case, I manually kicked off a process, so I just pointed it to SharePoint through our CMIS connector. I can filter what files I do or don't want to process from within SharePoint, so you don't have to process everything, and we have a number of filters you can apply to identify what you want to run through Grouper. So in this case, I pointed it to a specific document library and told it to process all the content within that document library. These are the steps we went through. So we went through some conditioning steps where we optimize all the content for text searchability so that we can then go through and read the content that's associated with it. So these first several steps are all automated steps that Grouper is performing to optimize our ability to extract the text from within these files. So in some cases, the files are already text searchable, and in other cases, they may just be scanned in images like a TIFF file. So we have the ability to handle all those file formats. Whether it's a Word document, an Excel spreadsheet, a TIFF file, a PDF file, it doesn't really matter to us. We can pull all of those different content types from SharePoint and run them through these different steps to condition them so that then Grouper can read the text and go through this step, which is classification. So within Grouper, we support supervised machine learning, and we can take one sample of a file and train Grouper on what the document type is associated with that, and it can then use that to go auto-classify additional document types with similar characteristics, using a number of concepts that come from the AI world. So in this case, we went through and used those things and auto-classified the content. After that, we have an extract step here. So with extraction, we're looking for specific patterns and flows within the file. So in this case, it was real simple. We were looking for a key name field, whether it was a company name or in the case of the loan packet, the actual applicant name that we were going to extract from it. And then we also had extractors or patterns built for social security numbers and date fields. And with date, we actually had some rules built so that we could identify a date of birth versus additional date types like an invoice date or a ship date. We didn't redact any of those, only dates of birth. So once we identify one of those, we also have this redact step. So anything we extract, we can go back and apply a redaction against it. So we did that. And then our final step here was our export. So we pulled them in from SharePoint. We ran them through these automated steps that required no human intervention. And then we outputted them into the content management application box, but we've cleansed them at this point. So now they're organized, now they're indexed, we've collected all the data elements that we need, we've redacted the sensitive data, we could normalize everything to PDF, so if we ingested it as a Word document, we can output it as a PDF, or we can leave it in its native format that we processed it from. So all those things are configurable. So I hope this was a beneficial presentation. Thank you for your time, and goodbye.